All right, here we go again. So I told you when I was in northern, or actually I was in Maryland working, I was watching one of the, I guess you would call, I didn't consider them investigations at that point, but one of the, or I guess at a certain point I did, but side investigations was Southern Maryland, Northern Virginia, and crimes at the hands of immigrants and lawfully and unlawfully present aliens. So one of the scams was they get an apartment. And of course, we knew a ton of them lived in one apartment. But essentially, you would have a certain number of people work and a certain number of people on welfare that couldn't receive that welfare because they were all, pulling their money together. So you would have, they get ton of food stamps, a ton of welfare. Right? And they weren't even here legally, most of them. So it's been happening for quite a while. It isn't just something new. So the thing with the media did start with what's that guy's name? Holder, but that was me and some other national security thing that we were working on. I mean, it wasn't only me, but I was part of that. And they went forward with it. And the idea was that the media had developed this idea where they had immunity. And they don't. They're bound by every law that every other U.S. citizen is bound by. The government actually has more immunity, actually has a real immunity where they don't. In other words, the government can't arrest them. The government can't, again, they'll say the government's suppressing. The government's not suppressing. The government has a right to defend itself. People have a right to defend themselves. The media is not God on earth. In fact, what I told the government is it's too easy to spy, pseudo-lawfully if you just put it under the umbrella of journalism. No, there's no lawful right to spy on the government by anybody, including media. Because you don't have to send it to Russia. Russia could just put you in place, have paid you $10 million 5 years ago, and say, just put it up on just leak it all to your media, sources and your media outlets, and we'll read it in the real time on the news, and then we'll send you some more money. So again, the laws do not say, and there's no way George Washington wouldn't hang a bunch of you. A bunch of you would be hanged by the colonial government. Oh, geez, they're colonial. Native Americans were colonial. Right. And they're actually colonial today to a certain degree. Right. They want all the rest of the country to live by their standards, and they weren't here once upon a time. They walked here. So they walked here, we sailed, and we got here. Squatters' rights, finders keepers. Well, because that's actually the law. I try to be as nice as I can, but the law that they lived by, now that they're overplaying their hand continually, the law of the land in this continent, actually north and south, for centuries before the Europeans arrived here, right, had always been finders keepers, right, squatters' rights. If you can't defend it, I get it. I mean, they killed all the men of a society and then took their women and raped them. And then took all their, jewelry and whatever the spoils of war were. So it isn't this idea where there was this code here before you got here. You're colonial. Native American was colonial, forcing their rules on another tribe, another nation. Right. And in fact, the first Americans were just here, just to try to escape some sort of persecution, believing that this would give them the opportunity. Right. I mean, they had to kind of live and rough it in Europe in a lot of cases. Right? You see that even in Venezuela, same situation. Right. And Colombia with their once great revolutionaries. but now their name's being used for bullshit. Well, because the idea is you come to the United States, you come to this continent, New Amsterdam, whatever they called it, and then you have to rough it. But what they figured was, and again, a lot of them figured wrong, was less of a support system here, right? A little more dangerous environment, right? But they figured, we'll just go there, and then we don't have to rough it and worry about somebody, the sheriff hunting us or whoever it was, the conquistadors or whoever it was. Right. So they decided, the Inquisition. I think most of it was the Inquisition. The Inquisition was the Catholic Church and their corrupt, illegal, unlawful, and evil Inquisition is what caused a lot of the people to flee Europe, even the Jews. Right. Get us out of here. We'll go live there, and then we'll rough it. We'll have to rough it, but we won't have to worry about these jokers. And then, of course, some of the Native Americans showed up and killed them all. Quite possibly Jamestown was such a thing. Is that the one that just Roanoke Island or something? One of the settlements was just completely poof gone. Right. Well, it's just a fact, man. They were, the original people that came here weren't that ruthless. Now, Columbus, he did apparently do some wrong things, but you know what? It's not beyond native culture to do exactly what Columbus did. Right. Probably even worse. Right. Not justifying, just saying, Right. Like pot calling the kettle black. Right. Agreed there. Again, I'm in no way justifying it, just explaining history real and how social interaction worked and how things that come around do go around. What comes around goes around, and it came around. And then you say, give it back. Well, you took it from them. Now we take it from you. Right. Right. The biggest, again, it's the same thing. There are people in history that were Democrats that did a great job, but we moved into a lot more corruption, Republican Party included. But some of the worst things for the Native Americans are some of the things the Democratic Party was doing. Right. Well, there's a reality. Like, we're not going to build. So your Native Americans on the border sided with the Democrats, said we're not going to build a wall, but every one of the reservations in the United States, definitely west of the Missouri, right, needed that wall because they were battling the narcotics addiction from the narcotics coming up from Central America. So it's like, okay, you're Native American and you know what the problem is. But you're not going to help fix that problem because the Democrats pay you money and they put you in as chief or assistant chief or whatever you are. Right. And for all we know, you're making money off the narcotics, and that's why you're doing it. You got that land right there, right? And they come across your land, they pay you the little troll fee, and you don't call the cops. Right. But meanwhile, every other Native American that is addicted to drugs is because of you, and you not willing to secure the border. Well, that's the only reason I never made it to a Native American reservation is because I am law and order, whether for whatever reason, right? And not like this hateful, hurtful law and order within reality of law and order, spirit of law and order. And again, part of law and order, to get there, you need to be, have social programs, give people a hand up, but you don't let people rape the social programs while forcing everybody down, including themselves. So again, years ago, this problem has been around for a long time, and I'm sure they did it. A bunch of people working, receiving benefits, and one of the ways they do it, they'll get like a 3-bedroom apartment, even a 4-bedroom apartment, right? Because they have them. And they just all live in there. And then a bunch of them work and a bunch of them get the benefits. Some people do both because they work under the table and act like they don't get any money, right? Without paying taxes or any type of lawful recognition of work. Well, you know, the whole time I'm trying to increase my disability because, again, the deep state's making the requirement for me to need more income. And there's no way I could ever go back to work. It'd just be a waste of time. If I became an Uber driver, they would all say I did something and call the cops. It would be that bad. What they want to do is if I go back to work, they would make it so miserable they'd never do it again. So again, they'd find a bunch of dirty cops, make a bunch of false statements, and the cops would come around me and say, well, we have a complaint. Right. I don't care. I could film everything in the vehicle because they don't never have to talk to me about anything, and they can sit there and ruin my life for 10, 20 years as long as the money flows to who, you know, requires the money to flow to them to let that happen and to cause that to happen. There's cops in history go, okay, so what do you say when you interviewed him? We didn't interview him. You didn't interview him? So they go, this is false. If you didn't interview him, it's false. There's a lot of cops that took that point of view. Again, it's just psychic, but I'm sure it's true. It's come in enough times. That's one of the first signs of a deep state fake case, that they don't interview that they see, get out of here. Whoa. Killing them inside. Hopefully they fucking drive off the road. Thank you, Larry. It's happened before, all of you. Gone. Whoa. Now you have to fight driving off the road, all of you. Thank you, Lurch. Nice snowstorm coming too. Perfect time. I'll be evil if you want to will me evil. Like goody, I'll be evil good. Right. AKA Angel of Vengeance. So the biggest thing was a lot of cops were like, if you don't interview, the first sign is if he's not being interviewed with this case they outlined, then it's a bullshit case because they didn't want to hear the other side of the story. Because when we look, actually, if you look, another group of cops said, let's look at who all these people are to define who these other people are who are bringing this to us. And they go, okay, this person's related to narco traffic. This person. And so they go, well, you know, that's narco traffic. He's like a sex fiend, a sex criminal. So even the narcos hate him. They went that angle. Even though we know the sex fiends and the sex criminals are the narcos. They're the worst of the worst. Right. So they said, well, you know, we didn't show you everything. We just wanted to show how they were tied to narcos. We have information over here that some of these people are pedophiles, sex criminals, families involved in sex trafficking. So again, they blew them out of the water. Somebody prepared it all because they knew the bullshit. And then it was brought to people like Comey. And he refused to take it, let it go anywhere. Director Ray swears he forwarded some of the cases. Inside, he goes. And U.S. Attorney's Office refused to prosecute. I don't know if he did or did. Maybe that's why he fared the best of all of them. I don't know. Well, these are high-level investigations because it involves, you know, corrupt law enforcement. So again, a lot of cases that involve law enforcement don't get to the prosecution stage for various reasons. It may not just be the U.S. Attorney's Office. It might be the FBI saying, okay, we're going to just go to the chief, tell him what's going on, and tell him to clean his department. So that's happened also. Right. Well, once you get into the idea, and again, it's a corrupt idea, but you know, it's the way the government works. Again, let's stay with reality. You know, political parties, both of them do this. And this is why they use agents that they give all this work to and make them look great. And again, they're usually pieces of shit and they can't really do the work, but they have people with them that can. You understand how it works? Larry's there helping them, but with the honest work, right? So they have all these honest cases that other people did, and they took the, I am the name of the case. I am the case agent. But actually, all the other officers are the real investigative effort. They're just not corrupt, so it's not in their name. But on their package, they can say, I was part of this case. Oh, wasn't that case agent so-and-so? He's likened unto God. You worked with him. You worked with him. They're big into personality work. They're very low-grade people. Deep state, that is. So they have like 50 cases that are like so important to the agency and the government that if we take this officer and tell the truth about this officer, all those cases get appealed and some overturned, if not all of them. That's the scam. That's the scam. Now, for the government's part, and I told them all along, you could pay me, because once they pay me, then it stops. Right? They're not going to be able to get it past a certain point. Right? That's the key of getting your money, and that's the key of not letting the victim have money, because you can't secure your life. No, you can overcome the bullshit of the government credit card as long as you have a credit card that can do what that government credit card does. They will actually block you from a woman by bringing people that are more attractive than you, younger than you, looking like they have like the persona of somebody that would, they create a persona of somebody that this woman would want to be with more than the victim. And use government credit cards to wine and dine and go around saying they're undercover, They use government credit cards to cock block me. Actually being present, I go out very little. And I went out very little, but when I would go to a bar, it would be like maybe a couple weekends in a row, a few weekends in a row to see if things would work. I could find a woman or something, or at least a woman to talk to that wasn't going to like play the deep state game. Right. And again, informant payments is also. So like you go to a bar, everybody gets paid till you get because they think, okay, he's going to come next time. So if he comes next time, but the first time I go, there's like 6 or 7 agents at a table with credit cards, government credit cards. They're allowed to use a government credit card to wine and dine any woman that even looks at me. This is really what happened. This is really who they are. This is really why they get 20 years in prison. But they'll spend their time in hell and it'll be much more than 20 years in prison. When they move on to the afterlife. This is really what your government's been doing. Oh, the stuff Elon found is really nothing. Targeted use of those funds to destroy people. Little people. Like some of the people come in and say, look, I agree to this program, but I only agree we only use it to people that, have money in the bank, a house. They work for, this firm for 20 years. They work for that firm for 15 years. Are part of this party for 19 years, moving on to, chairmanship of the state or something. That's what we agreed that program would be used against. Not some disabled veteran with nothing. Thank you, Larry. We agree. So again, I've received the psychic blips, but you're not convincing God. Because God works in what's actually happening. Right. So if it doesn't change, your apologies and your petitions for forgiveness don't work. You can say I'm not in anymore with your 10 million you made off of the system, the corrupt system, but you're part of it. And if my life never changed, which I told you needed to happen, then God won't forgive you. No, Rabbi Yeshua and David, the guy you're invoking right now, Jesus, did not absolutely forgive everybody equally. 100%. They try this shit, well, my God is bigger than... Not bigger than what I say, because what I say is what he says. What he really said. Right. I'm known as a mouth. We weaponize the mouth. Jesus has weaponized the mouth. That sounds kind of weird because they're in there weird. Thanks, Larry. No, the media was part of it. The media is part of the deep state. So there's an unholy alliance. Well, for some reason, I guess Holder was out or something. You weren't with Holder or Obama at that point. Well, the key is not to use it politically. I guess they use it against one side and Trump uses it against the other. But if you're going to be honest, you use it against whoever offends. Right? The government is allowed, you're just only get censorship. Again, there are laws. You can't be outside those laws. They're doing the same thing as we're protesting. You're not protesting. You're not a journalist. You just took on that title so you could commit crimes, or at least civilly offend, and not be sued. But you can be sued. Again, Trump proved that. Right. No, I mean, somebody leaked the information to them that I was, helping the Justice Department go after the corrupt media, right? So while we were in the Sinai South Camp, so a plane crashes. Within 24 hours, the media shows up outside our gate. We all look at him and go around. What are you doing there? Can't even get a piece here. So we had a project by the front gate, and that's, we were closing that up, ending that project. We had to go down by the front gate where they were. We were building a parking lot, a fenced-in parking lot. So we built fences for the Egyptians. I don't know whether I can't remember how the parking was before, where they just had a separate area they parked. We were fencing it in and, making it an official protected parking lot, but not inside the gate, outside the gate. But yet it was secured at the gate. I think you have to drive through the gate to get to it or something like that. I can't. Well, because when I got there, it was already they had already developed it to the point with the serpentine. That wasn't there, probably a few years earlier, like where they put the serpentines in, and right. That was the beginning, the Beirut bombings and all that. Right. Thank you, Lynch. So we started increasing security. And they pushed that Jewish guy off the ship, and at the same time, the family got shot. See, I end up in those places in important times in history because the system knows I'm big. I mean, I didn't know I was big, right? So I ended up at the front of the breach going into Iraq. I ended up, the front. We were like the first people to show up. I mean, scouts were in the area, but when the major force came in, we were at the front, and then. I was in Korea during the Olympics. See, it's a scam. The government doesn't pay me, but it puts me places because of my power. Right. Well, what happened essentially, the reason it went so well is the same reason you see again. The angels went with us. Right. So they put me at the front. So everybody gets bogged down, and then we show up. And it opens up again, and everybody's afraid. Ah! I wasn't the only one. Like I said, whoever the man was with that beard, he looked like a Mujahideen. Could have been CIA, could have been someone else. He was in a green track. Could have been Saudi, could have been, Kuwaiti attachments. I don't know. So whoever it was, they were in a green camouflage track, and I think they were wearing army green, right? But they had a beard like down to the middle of their chest. But I noticed him, and like then it didn't mean much. I'm like, that's pretty cool, though I never saw a military dude with that kind of beard. It was even past SEALs or anything like that. Right? And it could have been Jordanian, I don't know. And but when I woke up, Hashem was like, see, you were a king, You were the track commander king. You were actually the king. You were my king. That guy's my king. So he's like an Islamic king or something. Right. But that's how we did it. That's actually how. But see, now you kill the kings. Gant was one. You killed him. That guy who came up. I told you, you blackballed. That was, you put in the brig, the contractor, the Marines in the early Iraq battle before the Awakening Councils that came up with the Awakening Council idea. That's one of God's kings. So you see, you kill all the power and all the ability to win. Why? Because you're inside and outside at this point working for foreign governments. See, and that's part of what Iran knew, I think. They could see that they could affect our people just by a thought. Because whatever money they infused for corruption had made its rounds through those organizations and through those peoples. It doesn't even have to be cognizant. It's just like me. I didn't know that I was a king there for God, but I was doing what I was supposed to do. I was in the military. Right? I was with God. Right? Yes, I'm not religious. I'm with God. Opposed to religious people that aren't with God. Right. No, it's part of having faith to understand. And again, Rabbi Emden and a lot of the Jews started figuring that out in the Enlightenment era. It's having faith in God enough to know that God could create a religion, even opposing to a certain degree Judaism or something, or Jewish people, quote unquote. Again, if you read the Quran, you can't oppose a Jewish person unless they're evil. There's a lot of if you it's kind of like the fine print, but again, it's not the fine print. Like obviously, Muhammad's grandson knew it. Well, there's so many requirements to checks and balances to get somewhere. You can't really kill people unless you're in a situation where you have to kill them. Well, because at a certain stage of the game, if you do it the wrong way, you end up risking your afterlife, not even your life here, possibly. Right? If you try using the bullshit to mercy is cutting your head off, then that's the mercy you get. The Quran is clear. If that's your idea of mercy, then that's the mercy you will receive. So again, Iran, Saudi Arabia, stop the death penalty. I don't know how many death penalties you'll have to go through before God will let you back up when you pass on to the afterlife, but it's there. It's in the Quran. It's in there. Well, the question is, what do you define mercy as? Mercy is a great word in the Quran. So what do you define it as? And again, remember, they're calling this God's mercy, what they're doing. So by cutting your head off, I am engaged in God's mercy, and God is the most merciful. So they say, well, God's more merciful than I am, but you're saying it's God's mercy. So then therefore, when you get to the afterlife, you're going to experience God's mercy as cutting your head off. Or hanging you. Maybe from a crane like they do in Iran. For all the other hell recipients to see. Because they're next. That's the Yamadutas, string them up. Yamaraj and Yamaduta. He says it's a hard job, but somebody's got to do it. Thank you, Larry. You're not going to out God with me. You understand that, all of you? No matter how many temples you build, no matter how many gurudwaras you build, no matter how many synagogues you build. Because I'm not the Messiah. Hashem is. That's the one big thing. Aren't you God? Aren't you the Messiah? And when they do that to me, I know they've done it to other people. Right. Like I told you, right before I woke up, like, hey, hey, Larry, you can go over to the hospital, pick this guy up. And actually, I think that's when that's when I got in trouble with the DEA. The DEA turned me in. I didn't get in trouble with the DEA. Again, remember, this is the weird part. I listened to Unshackled, and it's a public broadcast. There's a DEA agent. He's a Christian. He arrests somebody and becomes buddies with him, essentially. And the guy, flips and all that. But he visits him in prison. He gets out of prison. They're buddies, going to church. So I do a little thing like I slip this guy a couple of chick tracts, which generally in the Marshal Service, nobody really cares. Right? So, except these new guys they're like assholes. Right? But, so the DEA turns me in. Of all the agencies that do it, it's the DEA, who had people in their organization that were Christians that were visiting people in jail, right, becoming friends with them when they were released, federal felon, right, on supervised release. And it's on Unshackled for all the world to hear. It's a radio show on the internet. What's it, the Chicago Mission? I don't remember what they called it. But Chicago Lighthouse Mission or something. They do a radio stories of Christian miracles and missionary work and things like that. So this DEA officer became one of the people in one of the Unshackled episodes. So my supervisor, who's a native Pittsburghian, I don't know if he's back here or not. Right, or even alive, to tell you the truth. Right. So he eventually comes over to my desk and says, "Look, I don't know if I think he brought the DEA up. Right. Again, probably explaining why he's even there. The DEA owed me. That's the other part. The DEA owed me for all sorts of stuff. Right. I used to help them like nobody else, but again, I helped the FBI the same way. Right. So, and again, there wasn't ICE or anything back then. There was some immigration, mostly customs, and they owed me too. But so much for owing me, right? But he came over and he said, you can't be friendly like that. Because he didn't want to go anywhere near religion. He was smart to do that. And I may have been in his head telling him that. I don't know. Right. Thank you, Larry. So he didn't want to say, you can't be religious or, religious this or religious that. So he just said, you can't be so friendly to the inmates. And I'm thinking, I just gave him 2 chick tracts, cuffed them like everyone else, stuffed them like everyone else. Now, Jim Spicer and I were definitely over the line if that was wrong. That was a little more explainable, I guess. Well, because we played preaching while we were driving, and we waited for them to initiate the conversation. Thanks. But they accepted. And the one guy was Islamic. And he says, I accept Jesus, but I'm always going to be Islamic. But I accept Jesus. And here's a guy, he ran a narcotics organization. They ended up killing somebody, I think is what came down. Yeah, they killed somebody, I think it was. And then you get arrested. That's how it was in Baltimore. If you didn't kill anybody, you probably deal drugs all day. As soon as you kill somebody, forget it, you target number 1. Or at least look like you're going to kill someone. But he told everybody, we're caught. These are the feds. Believe me, they got everything. Everybody plead guilty now. Lay down. It's over. Let's make a deal. And they didn't all listen to him, which I didn't understand. Right? About half of them listened. Right? A big organization. Right? And then, we drove him back and forth, and he said, yeah, I do accept Jesus, but I'm going to be Islamic. Right. So when I woke up, and I wasn't judging people, but when I woke up, I'm like, okay, I know how that works now. Because it doesn't say you can't be Islamic. Thanks, Larry. You don't have to pay homage to the church. You're probably closer to Islamic. Great stuff, let me tell you. What's wrong with me? The Holy Spirit. Listen to Mays Jackson, he'll explain it to you. Mays wishes he was a better preacher like me and didn't judge people so much. But he's a good man. He did the best he could. Well, stay peaceful. Praise God in all that you do. Praise God.